Hi, Rob here. Welcome to the IELTS Transformation Writing course. Today we're going to look at the Writing Task 1 academic band descriptors. So we're going to talk about what you need to do to get the right score, or to understand how to do the Writing Task 1 academic. We're going to look at the band descriptors. These will tell us exactly what we need to do. And actually, this is the most common area of failure, really, in IELTS. People don't seem to understand how to do this task. So we're going to try and clear that up today and help you understand what to do. So, as you can see here, we'll talk about 5, 6, and 7 really mostly, but Band 8 says you cover all the requirements of the task sufficiently. 7 covers the requirements of the task. So covers the requirements of the task means that you do everything that the task requires. Whereas if you compare that to a 6, look, addresses. So you talk about them, but you don't quite cover them, you don't complete them really. A 5 generally addresses the task, but the format may be inappropriate in places. So format here means that if you put bullet points, that's not appropriate. So it's an academic report, so you'll probably have 3 or 4 paragraphs, and that should be enough. 4 attempts to address the task, so tries, but does not cover all key features. When it says bullet points, that's referring to the general training, to the letter. So covers all the key features means the key features are the parts of the information, so it could be graphs or pie charts, or tables, or bar charts, or the diagram map, or the process. So the key features are the main things, the main ideas that jump out at you. So we will look at some examples and talk about that. So you've got to cover the requirements of the task, okay? 3 is a disaster, fails to address the task. So let's have a look. Really, you need to understand how to answer the question. So this is where most students fail, and that's the most challenging part. Look, the task is to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So you must address and cover the requirements of the task. That's not required. It is required. It's not optional. So the task is not to describe the information. It does not say describe. So if you simply describe the information, if you say, well, this is this line is doing this line is doing that, this line is doing this, then that's a description. It's not a summary. So a summary is when you look at all the information and take the main ideas and present them. That's what you need to do. So do not just describe. If you do that, as I've said here, you will be recounting detail, which means just giving detail, and that's a band 5. So that's what a lot of students do, a serious number. And as you can see, you don't get the score that you want, probably. So, look, 8 presents, highlights and illustrates key features clearly and appropriately. So that means that you do everything you need to do. 7 clearly presents and highlights the key features, but could be more fully extended. So you've done everything, but you could do with a bit more information, more extension, which means to make it longer. A 6 presents and adequately highlights the key features, but details may be irrelevant, inappropriate, or inaccurate. So this is quite common as well. People will, sometimes they'll get just a date wrong. So in the question it says in 2010, but the student makes a mistake and writes 2001. Well, that's a mistake, isn't it? That's not accurate. So you have to be accurate. And so that means that when you've written your task 1, you need to double check. Make sure you got all the numbers right, all the dates, the percentages, all of that information needs to be accurate to get a 7. Look, 5, presents but inadequately covers the key features. So you talk about them, but you don't cover them, you don't complete them. There may be a tendency to focus on details. Well, lots of people are writing, as I said, this line goes from, 0% to 50%. This line goes from 40% to 20%. That's just focusing on details. So we really need a much bigger view of the information. 4 may confuse key features with details. Parts may be unclear, irrelevant, repetitive, or inaccurate. So that's a bit of a disaster, as is a 3. So let's have a look. So you must analyse the task correctly. A lot of people, when they first look at it, they jump into it and start looking at all the numbers and all the detail and analysing it too much. So we have to take a step back. We need to analyse it. We've got to analyse what are the key features. If you don't get all of them, you're a band 4. And that can be quite common for people who are looking at diagrams. Often they'll miss part of it. So we need to look carefully at the task and compare the lines on the graphs, the numbers in the table or chart, the differences in the diagrams, or whatever the data is that's presented. So the question also asks you to compare, make comparisons where relevant. Well, mostly it is relevant to compare, so you should do that. Not describe, compare, summarize. That's what you need to do. So here's the thought process. When you look at the information, depending on the type of question, you're going to ask what's the same, what's different, what are the biggest changes, how is it changing, is there one number or feature that's clearly the highest? When we ask these, this helps our whole thinking. We will get, and is there one number that's clearly the lowest? So when we do that, when we ask these questions, we are naturally comparing, and we will find the most important features. Okay, so that's the thinking we need to have. So in all parts of this writing course, in the general training task 1, in the letter, there will be a thought process. In the task 2 essay, there will be a thought process. So you need to have a consistent thought process instead of looking at it and, oh, I don't know anything about that, or that's really difficult, or whatever your thought is. But there's a lot of initial negativity towards the task, so we need to not do that. So what are the key features? So if you jump in and look at the details, like here, it makes it challenging to find the key features. So I'm suggesting that you get a helicopter view, as you can see in that beautiful picture. You need to move the task away from you so that you can't see all the little numbers and you can see what the main features are. So are there any numbers or lines that are similar, that are different or similar? So if we look at this pie chart here, don't look at the numbers, but you can see that there's 4 parts. 3 of them are about the same. You can't really do that with a table because the table is all numbers, not very visual. And what are the biggest changes? Well, this pie chart isn't showing changes, but certainly if you have lines on the graph over time, then it will talk about the changes. So then you're going to look at the main features. So we'll look at this task in a bit more detail. But the helicopter view is the point. So you need to make sure that you're not jumping in and looking at detail, but you're moving it away and just looking for that overall view. Okay, so here's the task again. Look at the pie chart and table. What do you notice? If you look at the pie chart, as I mentioned, you've got these three parts are similar, about a third. If you look at the table, you'll notice that the numbers are quite different. So these three countries have very different numbers. And these two ideas are the overview, which we will talk about in much more detail. But the overview is a sentence that you need to have. There's another lesson on this separately because people often have trouble finding the overview. So that's how we get our overview. We look at the information and we notice what's the same and what's different. Okay. So the key features of this task. There are three main causes of global land degradation. So in other words, if we look at this, the causes of worldwide land degradation are kind of similar on a global basis. But if we look at the different regions, they're all quite different. Look, North America is much lower than Europe. Oceania is also lower, but it has one number that's much higher. And you can analyze the information across horizontally or vertically. It doesn't matter. Whatever is more logical. So let's have a look. North America is the lowest, apart from overcultivation. Europe is consistently the highest, including overall and in deforestation and overcultivation. Oceania lies in the middle, but with more extreme results in overcultivation and overgrazing. So you can see that North America is the lowest in all of them except this one. Europe's the highest in all of them except this one. Oceania's kind of in the middle, but has zero overcultivation, but the highest overgrazing. Total shows that Europe is way ahead. Okay. So we've got the main features. Now let's have a look at this. Presents a clear overview of main trends, differences or stages. So for a 7, you need a clear overview. For a 6, presents an overview. 5 recounts detail mechanically, which we talked about, with no clear overview. So if there's no overview, you're a 5. And this is a very common thing for students to do. So we need to learn how to write the overview and what to put in it. Fortunately, it's actually more simple than many people think. And it also says here, look, there may be no data to support the description. So if you make a statement, you must support it with information, with data, percentages or numbers, whatever the task is. Okay. So as we said, no overview is a band 5. An overview is one sentence that summarizes the main trends. For example, are all the numbers increasing or decreasing? What are the biggest changes or numbers? The overview can go anywhere in the task, but I would suggest that you put it in the beginning, in the second sentence. I will show you what the first sentence should be, and then what the second sentence should be. So start your sentence with overall, because then the reader can read it and understand, there's the overview, because the reader is looking for the overview, because that's what IELTS is looking for. So show them. Put it at the beginning and show them. You can put it at the end, but remember, we don't have a conclusion. It's not like an essay. There's no conclusion in task 1. But some people will put the overview at the end, and that's okay. But I would suggest you put it first. It's more logical and easy to see. There you go. Okay. So let's talk about data for a moment. So you must support your summary of the key features with numbers or data which show your point. So in our example, look, there are 3 main reasons why farming land around the world has had its productivity decreased. They are roughly similar in their effect. For example, overgrazing has caused 35% of it, while overcultivation and deforestation are 28 and 30% respectively. Another 7% is caused by other. So you make your point, you talk about the key feature, and then you support it with data. I'm also going to show you how to talk about the data, because lots of people get that wrong. Also notice here that I've used this word respectively. We use this when we make a list. So for example, here, or you could have a list of 3 countries, for example, the UK, Sweden and Turkey, and the percentages are 50, 40 and 30% respectively. Respectively means that it's in the same order, so the UK, Sweden and Turkey, in that order. So that's a really useful word when you're basically listing data. No data, ban 5. Okay, so you've got to have data. We've mentioned this task already. Here's the first sentence. Look. So sentence 1 answers the question what, where and when. So what is it? What's a pie chart and a table? Where? Globally and regional. When? I don't think it says in that particular one. Don't simply repeat or paraphrase the question, because you risk copying the words and you risk losing marks because you do that. So I'm suggesting you follow this sentence here. The table or chart or graph or whatever it is, and then use the word compare plus a noun clause. So in the grammar section, we talk about noun clauses. So learn what they are in our grammar video, okay? We want to use compare because it's going to make you think about comparing. But illustrate and show, they're also fine, don't worry. I'm not saying you must, but in my opinion, it's a good idea. The pie chart compares why land use for farming has decreased its production, and the table breaks down the causes of this in 3 different regions around the world over a decade. So this is the noun clause in brackets. The reason I'm suggesting that is because you need to make complex sentences, and noun clauses are a complex sentence, and often students don't write enough complex sentences in the task 1, and we need them. We need a mix of simple and complex sentences for a 6 and above. But don't worry about that now. We will talk about that in the grammar section. Okay. Then we've got sentence 2, the overview. I've written a separate lesson on that because it's important and sometimes causes some problems and confusion. Here's my overview here. Look, overall, there are 3 main causes of land degradation which vary in different parts of Earth. So in other words, there are 3 main ones, but then these are different in different parts of the world, which is what that pie chart and table show. Okey-doke. So here's the example of this. So please pause the video now and just take a moment to read this carefully and look at how that task is answered. There's lots of other things to talk about in here, but we don't have time to talk about that right now. I'm making other lessons on parts of those. Just for example, when we use the word this, that's a good thing. This refers back, and you need to use this word, this, to get a good score, okay? So, remember, approach the task in the right way, move it away from you, get the thinking right. What is basically happening here? What are the biggest changes? What are the biggest increases, decreases? Use those questions to Get the right information. Summarize, don't talk about detail. Clear overview, essential to get more than a 5. Support your features with data, essential to get more than a 5. Okay, so we've got another video now, another lesson looking at the overview. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and have a great day.